Hey guys, tonight we're stepping back into the mud-caked lanes and straw-stuffed hovels of the medieval countryside. The smell of smoke clings to your clothes, the scent of manure wafts on every breeze, and the clang of the blacksmith's hammer echoes through the fields. You're not royalty, not even close. You're not a knight, a priest, or a merchant. You're a peasant, one of the millions who made up the bulk of the medieval world. And your life, well, you probably won't survive this. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is. I love seeing how far this sleepy little village of ours stretches. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake before the sun in the pitch dark, the air damp and cold inside your cottage. The roof above your head is made of thatch, tightly packed bundles of straw laid atop wooden beams. You hear the skitter of mice between the rafters. If you're lucky, the thatch isn't leaking. If you're not, you already know what it feels like to wake up to rain dripping straight onto your face. Your bed is no more than a wooden frame with ropes strung across it, like a net covered by a sack of straw. You share it with your spouse and often with your children too. Privacy doesn't exist, nor does warmth. You all sleep in your clothes because blankets are a luxury, and the nights can be cruel even in summer. The fire in the hearth died hours ago, but there's no fuel left to restart it. Wood is scarce and peat burns slow, but smoke's bitter. Your first task before anything else is to stoke what little heat remains. If there are embers buried under last night's ashes, you blow on them, coaxing life from the gray. If not, someone might have to go beg a neighbor for a spark. Outside, the village is still asleep, but the animals aren't. Chickens stir in the yard, geese honk irritably, and somewhere a cow moans. If you're responsible for the livestock, and almost everyone is in one way or another, you'd better get moving. The animals need feeding before you even think about eating yourself. There's no time to waste. The day is packed with labor, and the sun waits for no one. Your chores depend on the season. In spring and autumn, it's planting or harvesting. In summer, you weed and water what you planted. In winter, you repair fences, mend tools, and pray your food stores don't run out. Your feet slip into rough woolen socks and wooden clogs. You cross the packed dirt floor, careful not to step in last night's chamber pot. The smell is bad, but it's nothing new. You're used to it. Everyone is. The pot will be emptied later, tossed into a communal waste trench near the edge of the village. You can't flush it away, there's no running water. Just a well shared by several families, and that water's only clean if it hasn't been fouled by runoff or a dead animal upstream. You step outside the cold, biting through your tunic, and look out over your strip of land. If you're a villain, a peasant tied to the manor, you don't actually own this land. You work it. You feed yourself from it. But a chunk of everything you produce belongs to the Lord who owns you in everything but name. If you're a serf, it's worse. You owe more and you can't leave the manor without permission. There's barely time to think about it. You grab a hoe and head into the field. Your stomach grumbles, but you won't eat until mid-morning. Breakfast will be stale bread, maybe dipped in milk or ale if there's any left. No eggs, no meat, those belong to the Lord. You're not allowed to hunt game or fish the streams unless he grants permission. Poaching is theft, and theft gets you whipped, or worse. As you walk, you pass other villagers, old men with crooked backs, women carrying heavy baskets, children hauling water or watching younger siblings while their mothers bend low in the fields. Everyone works, even the young, especially the young. A bell rings faintly from the manor's chapel. It's a call to prayer, but you'll say yours silently while pulling weeds or digging trenches for irrigation. You believe in God. Everyone does. But faith doesn't spare you the toil. If anything, it teaches you to endure it, to suffer with grace. This life is a test. Heaven is the reward. Someday, but not today. The soil is hard and dry from weeks without rain. Your hands are blistered. There's no such thing as gloves. You kneel in the dirt, back bent, and begin the work of coaxing life from stubborn earth. Your breath fogs in the morning air. The smell of manure, human and animal, lingers thick. That's your fertilizer. You don't waste anything. Nothing is discarded. Not bones, not ashes, not even your own filth. Your children play nearby, but it's not really play. One is gathering kindling. Another is shooing birds from the crops. A toddler barefoot and caked in mud is trying to catch a frog. He giggles, and for a moment you smile. But then you hear coughing from the cottage behind you. It's your eldest daughter. The cough started last week. It's worse now. You hope it's not consumption. Or worse, something contagious. If it spreads, there's no doctor to save you. The nearest healer is a day's walk away, and her cures are herbs, prayers, and bloodletting. You whisper a prayer under your breath. There's no medicine, no warm bed, just straw smoke and hope. Hours pass. Your stomach growls again. You try not to think about food. If there's a crust of cheese left from last week, that'll be your feast tonight. If not, it'll be pottage, a stew of barley, and whatever root vegetables you still have. It never quite fills your belly, but it's warm. And warm is everything. By mid-morning, the sun rises high and hot. You strip off your outer tunic and wipe sweat from your brow. The flies come in waves. You swat them away. The smell of dung and sweat is everywhere. You haven't bathed in weeks, maybe longer. But again, that's normal. No one expects you to be clean, just alive. You hear the distant sound of hoofbeats. A rider approaches, maybe a tax collector, maybe a messenger from the Lord. Everyone watches warily. Visitors mean news, and news is rarely good. A war, a new levy, a rumor of plague. It spreads fast in the summer heat. You brace yourself, but the rider passes without stopping. Just a traveler. You breathe easier. The sun climbs, your back aches. You wonder how many years your body can take this. You're in your 30s and already feel like an old man. Most peasants don't live past 40. Some die as children, some in childbirth, some from a cough, a scratch, a bite. And still you kneel in the dirt, your hands in the soil, the weight of the day pressing down on your shoulders like a yoke. The bell rings again, and you rise. You straighten your back slowly, the strain tugging at every muscle along your spine. It's midday, though you don't have a clock to tell you that. You measure time by the sun and by the rhythm of your body, how empty your stomach feels, how dry your mouth has become, how sore your knees are from pressing into the ground. There's no lunch break in the way you might think of it now. Just a pause, a brief moment to catch your breath and chew on something, whatever you managed to bring from the cottage. Today, it's a crust of brown bread, hard as a rock and wrapped in a bit of old cloth. You pull it out from your satchel and sit on a flat stone near the hedgerow. You gnaw at the bread using your back teeth to grind it down. Your front teeth are worn and chipped. Everyone's are. Sugar is rare, too expensive to rot your teeth, but grit from stone-ground flour does the job just fine. You chew slowly, your jaw aching from the effort. A few other peasants join you. No one speaks much. Conversations are simple. The weather, the crop yields, the cost of grain. You don't talk about dreams. You talk about survival. Because each day that ends without injury or loss is a good day. You take a sip of ale from a clay flask. It's weak more water than beer, but it's safer than drinking straight from the well. You know what happens when the water's gone foul. You've buried people because of it. Someone passes around a wedge of onion, and you all tear pieces with your fingers. It stings your tongue sharp and hot, but it's something different. Anything with flavor is a welcome change from the bland mash of daily life. One of the older women points to the clouds gathering on the horizon. Rain, maybe. Could be good for the crops. Could flood the fields. Could wash away the topsoil you've spent months tending. Could mean rot. Could mean mold. Every weather shift carries a threat, and you watch the sky with a mix of hope and dread. When the brief pause ends, you don't need to be told to get back to work. The work calls you. The weeds are growing. The animals are hungry. The fences are breaking. Everything in your life needs constant tending, and nothing ever stays done. You trudge back across the furrowed earth, stepping around fresh manure, a reminder of your oxen, your most valuable beasts. If one gets sick, you're ruined. They pull your plow. Without them, your fields turn to wilderness. You mutter another prayer under your breath, asking God to keep them strong. Back at the edge of the field, you lift your hoe and begin again. Over and over you strike the soil, breaking up clumps, dragging rocks aside. It's not just your land you work part of, the Lord's field is yours to tend too. It's your labor service, part of the unspoken contract that binds you to his land. He gives you protection theoretically. You give him your strength always. In the manor fields there are more eyes watching. The steward rides past on his horse, counting heads, inspecting rows. You keep your head down. If he sees you idling, you'll get docked, fined, or worse. There's no union here, no rights, just obligation. Somewhere beyond the trees, a bell tolls again. The church is calling for afternoon prayers. You murmur the Pater Noster under your breath while swinging your hoe. Your soul depends on faith, even if your body depends on muscle. If you die in sin, you're told you'll spend eternity in fire. And considering how your back already burns from labor hell feels a little too real. The clouds darken as the afternoon creeps on. A few drops of rain splatter on your arm, smudging the dirt and sweat into streaks. You look up, judging whether to head back or push through. There's no time to waste. But if the storm breaks, the work will be washed out anyway. You keep going. You remember your father's words grunted out through a missing tooth when you were still a boy. The earth doesn't care how tired you are. It wants feeding, or it gives you nothing. And he was right. You watched him die in that same field, a hoe still clenched in his hand. He never had a real resting place. Just a few prayers, a wooden cross, and the quiet nods of a dozen villagers who'd known him since he was a child. You wonder how long until you follow. The rain gets stronger, heavier, and now your tunic clings to your skin. The ground turns slick, sucking at your wooden shoes with every step. But you're close to done. Just a few more rows. You push on, ignoring the ache in your shoulders, the stinging in your eyes. You look back and see your youngest son, no more than 8, trying to herd the geese back to the pen. They hiss at him and he jumps, slipping in the muck. You smile in spite of yourself. He reminds you of yourself at that age, skinny, quick, too curious for his own good. You call out to him, your voice almost lost in the wind, and he gives a thumbs up. You finish the row and turn back, dragging your tools behind you. The rain has now soaked the earth, leaving behind shallow puddles that reflect the gray sky. Your hands are numb. Your knees ache. You trudge forward, willing your feet to carry you back to the cottage. Inside, it's warmer. Barely. The hearth has been lit again, and the smoke coils upward into the thatch. Your wife is tending a pot over the fire, a thin broth bubbling with turnip and barley. She nods to you, but says nothing. You sit beside the fire, peeling off your soaked tunic and replacing it with a dry, if scratchy one. The children gather around. One picks at a scab, another chews on the corner of a cloth. Your daughter, still coughing, lies near the hearth with a damp cloth pressed to her forehead. You reach over and touch her hand. Still warm. You don't know if that's good or bad. Your wife ladles out the evening meal. It's simple, flavorless, but it fills the gap. You eat in silence, listening to the hiss of rain on the thatch and the distant bark of a dog. After the meal, there's no entertainment, no books, no music, just tasks. One child mends a hole in a tunic with a crooked needle. Another grinds grain with a hand mill, the stone wheel rasping in a rhythmic circle. You sharpen tools by the firelight. The grindstone squeals as it scrapes across metal. You check your hoe's edge, nod, and set it aside. Tomorrow, you'll need it again. Someone knocks at the door. It's a neighbor soaked through. He's come to share news a stranger passed through the village. No name, looked sick. Maybe just a cough, maybe worse. Word spreads fast here. You nod concerned and close the door quickly. You check on the children again. Your daughter's breathing is shallow. You say another prayer, another plea. You've seen how fast it happens. One day a fever, next day silence. The light fades. Darkness wraps the village. You don't have candles, they're too expensive. Just a tallow lamp, the stink of animal fat filling the air as it burns. You lie down again on the straw-stuffed bed, your family pressed close. The cottage is silent except for the crackling fire, the distant rain, and your own exhausted breath. You close your eyes, and you sleep. Because tomorrow, the same rhythm will start again. The cock crows before dawn, just like it always does. The cry cuts through your sleep like a knife, dragging you from the warmth of shared body heat into the cold reality of another medieval morning. Your muscles protest before you even open your eyes. Everything aches, your back, your knees, your hands, but there's no time to linger. There never is. You shift under the rough blanket, careful not to disturb the children too much. They're huddled beside you, tangled in limbs and breath. One has drooled on the edge of the bedding. Another kicks slightly in a dream. You're tempted to stay curled beneath the covers just for a few more moments. But duty is louder than comfort. You sit up and feel the night's chill bite at your skin. The fire in the hearth has long since gone out. A thin layer of ash sits on the coals, and the hearthstones are cold. You shuffle across the floor, wincing as your bare feet find the damp patches where the thatch dripped in the night. The pot near the wall still holds a bit of rainwater caught from a hole in the roof. You ladle some into a cracked bowl and splash your face. It's freezing, but it shocks you fully awake. No soap, just water and friction. You scrub your hands and cheeks, then wipe yourself dry on a piece of cloth that hasn't been truly clean in weeks. Hygiene for you is more about ritual than results. You try. You always try. But there's only so much you can do with cold water ashes and a bit of animal fat. You slip into yesterday's tunic. There's no such thing as a fresh change of clothes unless it's Sunday or a festival. Even then, you're lucky to own more than 2 sets of garments, one for work, one for worship. Both are patched so many times, the original fabric is a mystery. Outside, the sky is just beginning to pale. A faint silver bleeds along the horizon, hinting at the rising sun. You step into the yard and inhale. The smell hits you immediately, damp earth manure smoke and wet thatch. It's a mix you know intimately. It clings to your hair, your skin, your clothes. It follows you into sleep and greets you in the morning. You hear the restless stirring of animals in the pen. The pigs grunt impatiently. The chickens scratch the dirt, pecking at invisible morsels. A cow moans softly, low and mournful, asking for feed. You move quickly, scooping handfuls of old hay and tossing it into troughs. You talk to them as you work, not because they understand, but because silence feels heavier in the morning. There's no grain left to spare. What you harvested went straight to the manor. A portion might come back to you in rationed shares, but never enough. You stretch your own stockpile as far as it will go. Sometimes you grind acorns into flour, sometimes dried peas. You've even seen bark turned into something like bread during desperate years. Your wife joins you, pulling a shawl tight around her shoulders. She's already carrying the clay bucket, heading to the well. The rope squeals as she lowers it down into the dark, echoing chamber. You watch her for a moment, quietly admiring her strength. Her hands are as calloused as yours, her eyes just as tired. When she returns, the children are starting to stir. They groan, stretch, and scratch as they rise. The littlest cries from hunger. You scoop him into your arms and bounce him gently, whispering nonsense to soothe him. His face is dirty, his hair a tangle of straw and curls. But he smiles at you, and it cuts through the fog of exhaustion. Breakfast is thin today. A bit of boiled barley eaten with fingers from a shared bowl. Everyone gets a few mouthfuls. No one complains. Hunger is just another feeling, like cold or tired. Always there, always manageable. Mostly. There's a knock at the door, a rhythmic rap you recognize. It's your neighbor Edric, a stooped man with missing teeth and a limp that's gotten worse over the past year. He's here to remind you, today is obligation day. Not your own land, not your own time. Today you'll be working the Lord's domain, the part of the estate reserved for his direct profit. You sigh, not with surprise, but with resignation. The calendar in your head already told you this, but confirmation always feels heavier than the expectation. You grab your tools, your worn hoe, your splintered rake, your knife strapped to your belt. You kiss your wife on the forehead and ruffle your daughter's hair. She's coughing less this morning. That gives you hope. Maybe she'll make it through. The walk to the domain field is short, but your steps feel long. Others join you along the way. Familiar faces, familiar burdens. No one really talks on the road. Words are for when the work is done. At the manor fields, the steward waits atop his horse. He has a wax tablet in hand, scribbling with a stylus, ticking off names. He doesn't greet you, just nods. You don't expect courtesy. His clothes are clean, his boots polished, his hands unscarred. You try not to hate him for it. The Lord isn't present. He rarely is. You've only glimpsed him a handful of times, once on horseback, once in church, once during a feast, when he waved from the manor steps, while pigs roasted on spits, and you were lucky to get a spoonful of dripping from the pot. You take your place in the row assigned to you. This field is better kept than yours, flatter, more fertile. The soil here hasn't been bled dry by too many seasons. You notice the difference under your boots, less stone, more loam. You work with a rhythm born of repetition, your body moving almost without thought. Dig. Lift. Turn. Repeat. The steward walks the rows watching. You hear someone behind you grumble under his breath, and you tense. Speaking out brings attention. Attention brings punishment. The last man who spoke back spent a night in the stocks, and his reputation hasn't recovered since. You keep your head down. The sun climbs. Sweat clings to your skin. Your tunic sticks to your back. Blisters bloom and burst on your palms. You don't stop. You don't ask for rest. The only break you'll get is when the steward's bell rings to signal midday. And when it finally does, you step away, not even sitting, just leaning against your hoe for support. Your breath is ragged. Your arms like lead. A small satchel tied to your belt holds your meal, a handful of dried beans and a heel of bread. You chew it slowly, more for distraction than nourishment. It turns to paste in your mouth. Someone nearby vomits in the grass. Too much heat, not enough water. No one rushes to help. You all just wait for the bell again. When the work resumes, it feels heavier. The afternoon sun beats down mercilessly. You squint against it, your eyes dry and burning. Flies circle your head. You swat them away half-heartedly. They always come back. By the end of the day, your hands are trembling. You can barely hold the rake. The steward dismisses you without words. You bow your head slightly and turn home. The walk back feels longer than it should. Your legs drag. Every step jostles a new ache to the surface. When you reach your cottage, the door is open. Warmth spills out. And the smell, boiled onions, herbs, maybe even a scrap of pork bone greets you like a memory from another life. You enter, and the children greet you with soft laughter. Your wife hands you a bowl and says your name. That's all it takes. You're home again, for a little while. You eat. You wash your hands in the bucket. You sit near the fire. You let the weight of the day fall off you like a heavy coat. Then you stretch out beside your family once more and let sleep take you back into the darkness where the fields can't follow. But morning will come. It always does. Morning stirs again, and with it comes the cold, creeping fingers of damp that seem to live in the very walls of your cottage. You wake not because you want to, but because your body, sore and sorely accustomed, knows the sun is near. The rooster crows a second time. A low moan escapes your lips as you shift, careful not to disturb your wife or the little ones still nestled against you. The straw mattress crackles beneath you, flattened by years of weight and wear. Today is different, but not better. It's repair day. The Lord's land isn't due your labor this morning, so you return to your own patch, small and stubborn. It barely yields enough to feed the family. Some seasons it doesn't. But it's yours in name, if not in deed, and the hedges surrounding it need mending before animals wander in and destroy your work. As you sit up, you feel the deep ache in your lower back. It spreads like tree roots. You rub the spot, then roll your shoulders. The cottage creaks with your movement. Your wife is already awake, wrapping her shawl tightly around her. She doesn't speak, she doesn't need to. There's a rhythm between you both, silent and efficient. It's been honed over years of necessity. Words are rare in the mornings, like luxuries that cost too much. She scoops the embers in the hearth and stirs them back to life. A few sparks leap upward. She adds a twist of dried bramble and coaxes a little flame. The glow softens the edges of the cottage walls. You lean close to the warmth, not for comfort, but to press your aching hands toward the heat. The youngest stirs, whimpering in his sleep. His nose runs and he coughs in short little bursts. You hope it's nothing. Hope is all you ever have in these moments. No one gets to be sick for long. You either recover quickly or you don't. Breakfast is the same as yesterday, porridge thin and gritty ladled into rough bowls carved from wood. You eat slowly, silently, counting the portions, the days, until the barley runs out. You drink weak ale again, less for the taste, more for the peace of mind. It's safer than the water. Cleaner, somehow, despite its cloudy surface and tangy, sour aftertaste. When you step outside, the sky is a soft gray. Mist clings to the ground. Your boots sink slightly into the mud, and your breath puffs out in the morning chill. The hedge near your plot sags under its own weight, and several branches have fallen, leaving gaps that stray animals could wander through. You fetch a bundle of thorny cuttings, thick gloves, and the old billhook you've kept sharpened. The task is tedious, painful. Even splinters, snags, and thorns are inevitable but necessary. You begin by pulling the broken sections of hedge inward, lacing new branches through them to reinforce the barrier. Your hands work quickly. The gloves are worn, barely protecting your fingers, and you soon feel small pricks of blood where the thorns have found skin. As you work, your mind drifts. You think about the old stories told in the village of a time when people roamed freely, when land wasn't owned by lords, but held in common. Maybe it's true. Maybe not. But you hold on to the idea like a charm, a time when men worked for themselves. When they weren't born into obligations, they didn't choose. You pause, wiping sweat from your brow with your sleeve. Your stomach growls again, but it's not quite noon. A little longer. Just keep working. From across the field, you hear singing, children's voices, high and thin. You glance up and see a group playing near the old stone well. Their songs are simple rhymes, half prayers, half games. They sing about foxes in the woods, about saints and angels, about death and bones and blessings. Always close to the truth. Always closer than you'd like. You wonder if they even know how close to hunger they are, or if their songs are how they survive it. By midday, your hands are sore and streaked with blood. The hedge looks better, still ragged, but stronger. You take a step back and admire your work just for a moment. Then the wind shifts, carrying the scent of smoke and meat. You freeze. It's not your smoke, not your meat. You follow the smell with your eyes and spot a small procession moving along the path toward the village center. A nobleman's retinue, likely a cousin or guest of the manor lord. They're heading toward the village square, and where nobles gather, there may be a feast, or at least leftovers. The possibility stirs something inside you. You pick up your tools and make your way toward the noise. By the time you arrive, a crowd has already formed. Peasants from neighboring plots, children barefoot in the dirt, older women leaning on sticks. The nobleman sits atop a sleek horse, his tunic embroidered in colors you couldn't dream of affording. Behind him, carts carry barrels of wine, crates of dried fish, sacks of grain. There's talk of celebration, a wedding perhaps, or a treaty with a neighboring manor. No one knows for sure. But the steward steps forward and tosses coins into the air, scattering them into the crowd. A child dives for one and scrapes his face on the stones. His mother yanks him back, and someone else grabs the coin. No one blames each other. Everyone's just trying to survive. Later, when the carts begin to unload, the smell of roasted meat fills the air. Boar, likely. A delicacy. It'll go to the nobleman's table first, then to the manor hall. But sometimes, just sometimes, scraps filter down. Bones with bits of meat still clinging. A skin crisped with fat. Drippings saved in a pot and spread thin on bread. You hover near the back of the crowd, waiting, not begging, just watching. You don't want to be noticed, but you don't want to miss your chance either. Hours pass and night begins to fall. Fires are lit in the square. Musicians play lutes, flutes, and clapping hands. The dancing begins slow and stumbling. You don't dance. You haven't in years. But the sound lifts something inside you, something buried under layers of labor and dust. Then you see it, a boy you recognize from another cottage carrying a wooden bowl steaming with something rich and dark. He nods to you. No words. Just a quiet understanding. He hands you the bowl and walks away. You sit on a stone cradling the bowl in your hands. It's stew, real stew. Bits of meat, carrots, herbs you can't name. You take a bite and almost cry. It's hot. It's salty. It's food. You eat every drop. The fires die down as the nobleman's retinue leaves. The musicians drift away, their instruments slung over shoulders. The square empties. You return home, the bowl still warm in your hands. Your wife looks up as you enter. You nod. She knows. She smiles. The children are already asleep. You lie down beside them, heart full for once. Not of joy, but of something close. Something that tastes like hope. Tomorrow may bring rain, or sickness, or the return of hunger. But tonight, you sleep, full, warm, alive. The morning after a feast day always carries a strange silence with it. The village seems slower, softer, as if the earth itself had stayed up too late. You rise before the sun again out of habit more than urgency, and your body moves stiffly like an old cart with frozen wheels. Your breath fogs in the cold as you roll from the bed, careful not to disturb the children curled beside you. For a moment, you sit on the edge of the straw mattress, listening to their breathing and the wind whistling through a crack in the wall. The stew from the night before still lingers on your tongue in memory. The taste was real rich and seasoned. That alone makes today easier. A small blessing. Not enough to change your life, but enough to soften the hard start of the day. You pull on your damp tunic, still smelling faintly of smoke from the village fires. The scent is comforting in its own way. You wrap your belt tightly around your waist, grab your cloak, and slip outside. The sky is a smooth, colorless gray. You can't tell if it's morning or simply the absence of night. Dew clings to everything. The ground is soft beneath your feet, and your boots squelch as you cross the yard. Today you're going to the woods. You're not supposed to. The forest belongs to the Lord. By law, the deer, rabbits, and even the fallen wood are his property. Taking anything without permission is poaching, punishable by fine, by mutilation, even by death. But your child's cough is back. The herbs in your garden have done nothing, and you remember a root your grandmother once used, burdock, or maybe horehound, bitter and earthy, boiled into a thick tea. It's said to calm the lungs. If nothing else, you need firewood. You're out of peat. The ground is too wet to dig more. You pray no one catches you. You take the back path, the one behind the hedgerow, and follow it until the brush thickens. The forest looms ahead, all dark trunks and rustling leaves. You glance behind you, then duck into the trees. Inside, it's like stepping into another world. The noise of the village fades instantly. The air is cooler, cleaner. You hear birdsong light and liquid. A squirrel scrambles up a nearby oak, chattering at you and from a high branch. Moss carpets the ground in soft patches, and the light filters in through shifting gaps above. You breathe deeply and feel for a moment almost free. You search quickly, keeping your eyes low. You find fallen branches first, nothing thick, but enough for kindling. You bundle them with rope, setting them aside. Then you begin your hunt for herbs. You kneel near a patch of low-growing weeds and examine their leaves. Not quite right. You move on. A patch of nettles stings your skin through the gloves, but you brush past it. Then finally you find it, a ragged bunch of pale green leaves with a thick, hairy stem. Horehound, bitter as death, but good for the lungs. You pull it gently from the ground, wrap it in cloth, and slip it into your satchel. You're about to leave when you hear a crack behind you. You freeze. For a moment you can't breathe. Then you turn slowly and see a figure emerge through the trees. It's not the steward, not a forester. Just a boy, one of the manor servants, maybe a year or two older than your own son. His tunic is finer than yours, but not much. He's carrying a bundle of firewood, too. His eyes meet yours, and for a moment, neither of you speaks. Then he nods once and disappears into the undergrowth. You exhale. Even here, even in the shadow of laws and lords, there is understanding. The poor recognize each other. And silence is a gift you both know how to give. You shoulder your bundle and head back home, moving faster now, careful to stick to the worn deer trails. When you step back into the clearing near your village, it's as if the woods vanish behind you. The cottage appears like a landmark on the edge of your known world. You cross the field, push open the creaking door, and are immediately met by your wife's worried eyes. You show her the herb, and she nods. Relief and worry mixed together in her expression. She sets water to boil while you stack the firewood beside the hearth. The children gather close. Your daughter still coughs, though not as violently as yesterday. You crush the herb and drop it into the pot. The smell is strong, sharp. The steam carries it into every corner of the cottage. You sit beside her, gently wiping her face with a damp cloth. Her skin is warm, her cheeks flushed. You whisper a prayer again, not to be spared, but to be seen. By God, by someone, by anything greater than this life of cold ground and aching knees. The tea is bitter, and she makes a face when she drinks it. But she drinks. And you hope it helps. The rest of the day is filled with repairs. A loose hinge on the cottage door. A leak in the thatch that needs plugging. You climb onto the roof and stuff dried moss between the reeds, careful not to shift too much weight. One wrong step and you'll be falling through. You pause at the top, sitting for a moment, legs straddling the beam, and gaze out over the village. From here, it all seems small. Smoky chimneys, muddy paths, thin trails of people moving like ants from field to yard to barn. Children running, dogs barking, someone arguing over the rights to a chicken that wandered into the wrong pen. But in the distance, past the manor walls, past the far hills, you see open land, forests and meadows untouched, places you'll never go because you were born here, because you belong to the land as much as it belongs to the Lord. You sigh and return to your work. By evening, your muscles throb again. You carry the tea to your daughter. Her fever hasn't broken, but she seems lighter, her breathing less strained. You tuck her in, smoothing the rough blanket over her, and kiss her forehead. You sit by the hearth, staring into the flames. Your wife leans against you. Neither of you speaks. The fire pops once, sending a tiny ember skittering across the floor. You watch it fade. Outside, the wind rises. You hear it in the trees, in the thatch, in the rustling of the animals as they settle into sleep. Tomorrow you'll go to the manor fields again. Tomorrow it begins all over. But tonight, you're still here, together. And that is enough. The wind is still moaning outside when the first whispers of light creep into your cottage. You've barely slept. Not because of discomfort, you've known nothing else, but because your daughter's fever spiked in the night. She whimpered in her sleep, twisting beneath the blanket, her breaths shallow and fast. You sat by her side until your eyes burned from exhaustion, your fingers brushing against her forehead now and then, hoping each time to feel coolness return. It didn't. Your wife is already up when you finally rise. She's grinding barley into meal, the slow scrape of stone on stone, a sound you've heard 1,000 times. You watch her for a moment, admire her strength even in silence. She hasn't cried, though you know her heart aches as yours does. The hearth fire burns low. You stir the embers, toss on a few twigs, and carefully build it up again. The tea herbs are nearly gone. What you found yesterday was enough for a few servings, but no more. And you don't dare return to the woods so soon. The Lord's men are watchful after feast days. They assume peasants will steal. Sometimes they're right. You decide to face the steward today to ask for mercy, not for charity. You know better than to beg. But sometimes the manor keeps old remedies, dried herbs, or ointments. A gift from the priory. A favor from the lady of the house. Maybe if the steward is in a good mood, he'll allow you a scrap of something. You eat what little there is, a corner of hard bread soaked in water, and gather your courage. The path to the manor winds uphill, flanked by low stone walls and gnarled trees. Along the way, you pass others' children carrying baskets, women with jugs balanced on their heads, a man with one arm dragging a broken cart. All bound for the same place, all tied to this land by invisible chains. The manor house rises ahead, not grand by noble standards, but massive compared to your hovel. Stone walls, narrow windows, a high wooden gate. It smells of horses' smoke and damp stone. The steward stands near the stables, speaking with one of the reeves. He sees you, lifts an eyebrow, but doesn't speak until you approach and bow your head. You choose your words carefully. You speak of your daughter's fever, of your work, your loyalty, your labor in the Lord's fields. You don't ask for much, just a pinch of dried horehound or elderflower if there's any to spare. The steward sighs through his nose. He's not a cruel man, just tired and important in ways you aren't. He motions for you to wait, then disappears inside. You stand in the cold, staring at your boots, trying not to look like you're pleading. When he returns, he carries a tiny pouch tied with string. This is all he says, flatly. From the priest's stores. Don't make a habit of this. You nod. You thank him. You bow again. And then you run. By the time you reach the cottage, your lungs are burning. Your wife looks up, eyes wide. She doesn't need to ask. You show her the pouch, and she presses a hand to her chest. A small breath escapes her lips. Relief, perhaps. Or a small temporary hope. You brew the tea slowly, carefully, and lift the cup to your daughter's lips. She sips. Her eyes flicker open. She smiles faintly. And you feel something you haven't felt in days, a thread of calm. But the work doesn't pause just because your heart is in turmoil. You must return to the fields. The manor expects its due. You shoulder your tools again and walk the muddy path to your strip of land where barley sprouts are barely visible through the churned soil. You bend low and begin weeding your fingers numb from cold and effort. Around you, other villagers do the same. The air is filled with the sounds of scraping metal grunts and the occasional muttered curse. You work until your back screams, until your palms are raw, until the world narrows to dirt and sweat and breath. The sun is high when the bell rings for a break. You sit on the edge of the field and drink from your flask. Just water today. Ale is gone. Bread is gone. But your daughter is resting, and that fills the hollow space in your chest better than food ever could. You speak with an old man beside you, Oswin. He's been working these fields longer than you've been alive. His teeth are nearly gone, his hands twisted with age. But his eyes are sharp and his mind sharper. He tells you of a time when there were fewer taxes, fewer duties. When the villagers pushed back, refused to hand over grain until the steward relented. You ask him what happened. He shrugs. 3 hanged, the rest quiet after that. You nod slowly, silently. After the break, you help repair a stone fence near the far edge of the field. A storm last week knocked it loose and sheep from another plot wandered through. You and another man haul heavy stones, grunting with effort, pressing them into place. There's no mortar, just balance, just patience. When the day ends, you walk back with shoulders bowed and heart heavy again. The weight of your body feels doubled. But when you reach the cottage and open the door, you see your daughter sitting up. She's eating. Only a little. Just some boiled carrots. But she's sitting up. You kneel beside her, brush her hair back, and kiss her cheek. Her skin is cooler. Her eyes are clearer. She says your name. And your heart, tired as it is, swells with gratitude so big it pushes the ache out of your bones for a while. That night, you light a little tallow candle. Just one. It's all you have. The flame flickers gently, casting long shadows on the wall. Your wife sits beside you, sewing a tear in a shirt. The children sleep curled together like puppies in the corner. Your daughter's breath is steady, deep. You listen to it, the most beautiful sound you've heard in days. You whisper a quiet prayer. Not a request. Just thanks. And then you stretch out on the mattress, close your eyes, and fall asleep faster than you have in weeks. The dream is still clinging to your mind when you wake, a blur of color, the face of your daughter smiling, a warm sun overhead. It fades quickly, replaced by the sound of morning, a rooster's call, a baby crying. Somewhere nearby, the gentle creak of the wooden cottage as it adjusts to the breeze. But something is different. It takes you a moment to notice. It's quiet. Not still, not calm, but the kind of quiet that sets your teeth on edge. The village is always noisy in the mornings, clanging pails, barking dogs, voices calling across yards. But today it's muffled, as though the world is holding its breath. You sit up slowly. Your daughter still sleeps, her breath steady. That's good. The others are just stirring. Your wife glances at you, eyes narrowed in that way that says she senses it too. Something's off. You pull on your boots and step outside. The air smells sharp, wet soil and smoke. But there's something beneath it. Something sour. The sky is pale and sickly, the kind of yellow-white that warns of trouble. Storms, maybe. Or worse. A bell tolls from the manor. Not the usual one. 3 times. Slow, measured. A sound that sends a ripple through your bones. You've heard that toll before. Years ago when the old Reeve died suddenly. And before that when a fire swept through a nearby village. It's the alarm. The one that means danger, illness, death. You tighten your belt and head toward the square. As you walk, doors open. Faces peer out. People gather. Whispers fly low, fast, nervous. Someone says the word aloud. Plague. Your stomach knots instantly. You want to believe it's just fear talking. Rumor. A cough, a fever, it could be anything. But you know how these things spread. You've seen it before, when you were still a boy. Entire families gone in days. A village burned to stop it from spreading. Mass graves dug hastily and filled by night. The steward appears flanked by 2 guards. He raises his hand signaling silence. The crowd hushes. There's sickness to the south, he says. 2 villages. A dozen dead. The priory is watching it. No one travels. no one leaves. No strangers are to be housed. Keep your distance. If symptoms appear, he trails off. Everyone knows what comes next. He doesn't have to say it. If symptoms appear, fever, rash, blackening skin, you're already gone. You return home quickly. Your wife is waiting, clutching the younger children to her side. You close the door behind you, sliding the latch in place, though it's never been needed before. She asks quietly, and you nod. Plague. She covers her mouth with her hand. The rest of the day is spent preparing, not running because you can't run from plague, but preparing in the only ways you know how. You boil water. Scrub your tools with vinegar. Air out the cottage. Burn bundles of dried herbs to scent the air, as if smoke and rosemary could keep death from slipping through the cracks. You feed the animals quickly, carefully keeping distance from anyone else you pass. Eyes avoid yours. Conversation is clipped. Everyone is suddenly afraid of each other, as though a cough or a breath could be a dagger. And perhaps it is. The church bell rings again, this time the normal call for evening prayers. But few attend. You stay home. You kneel by the hearth with your wife and children, and you pray harder than you have in years. You ask for protection, for mercy. You ask that death forget your name. That night, no one sleeps well. You lie awake, staring at the ceiling, tracing the patterns in the thatch, counting every heartbeat. You hear coughs in the distance. Are they real or imagined? You can't tell anymore. A dog howls, an owl calls, and you finally drift into uneasy sleep. When you wake, the world is the same but more brittle. You go to the fields, but not with the usual rhythm. Every glance is wary. Every distance is kept. You work alone, pulling weeds, checking for signs of rot. Not just in the plants, but in yourself. You monitor your skin constantly. Is that a bruise, a rash? You feel your forehead. Cool. Still. Your neighbor Edric doesn't show up. You ask a passing boy and he shrugs. He's tired, the boy says. You nod, but something in your gut twists. You'll check later. At midday, a man collapses in the field. Everyone backs away instantly. He's breathing, but pale, slick with sweat. No one moves, not even the steward who stands at a distance. They call for the priest. You leave early that day. At home, the children are quiet. Your wife has hung damp cloths over the windows, hoping to filter the air. You burn more herbs, their scent thick and cloying. The smoke stings your eyes. The village feels different now, split, silent, suspended. Work continues, but with ghostly quiet. The manor fields are thinned. People keep to themselves. No singing, no laughter. Just rustling leaves and the clink of tools in soil. 2 days later, Edric's door is nailed shut. You see it when you pass a mark in white paint smeared on the wood. A sign. A warning. You don't see him again. The world shrinks. You don't visit the market anymore. You barter with your neighbor through an open window. You plant fast-growing vegetables, turnips, greens, just in case. You save every scrap of food. You keep the children inside. You stop attending Mass. You become a shadow of yourself, drifting between fear and duty. Each night you sleep with one ear open. Each morning you check your daughter's skin, her eyes, her breath. Still better, still healthy. And then one night the bell tolls again. Once, twice, then silence. You don't know who it was, but you light a candle anyway, and pray it wasn't someone you loved. The days begin to blur. Each one folds into the next, like damp wool pressed tight together, indistinguishable heavy soaked through with tension. You still wake with the sun, though it no longer brings comfort. The golden light that once warmed the fields now feels indifferent, even cruel, as if it watches from afar without lifting a hand. Your morning routine is slower now, not from laziness but from caution. Every action carries weight. Every decision is made through a filter of fear. You move like someone balancing a basin of water, careful not to spill, careful not to breathe too deeply when you pass another face on the road. Work continues. It must. The fields demand it. Hunger doesn't wait for plague to pass. But even the soil seems different now, brittle, sour. The weeds come faster than the grain. Your tools feel heavier, and the silence is unnatural. Where once there were songs, idle chatter, or even arguments, now there are only the sounds of birds and wind, and coughing, always coughing. Not yours, not yet, but enough from others to keep your ears tuned, alert, like a hound to every rasp in the air. The steward no longer patrols the fields. He stands at the manor gate now, issuing orders to reeves who wear cloth over their mouths and keep their distance. The usual demands for labor have softened, become suggestions. It's not mercy, it's desperation. Too many peasants are sick, too many are dead, and the Lord still wants his grain. At the end of one long afternoon, you pass a cottage that hasn't let smoke from its chimney in days. A smell hangs in the air, a thick, foul warning. You don't go closer. No one does. By evening, 2 men arrive in hoods and gloves. They carry torches and a cart. You know what they're there for. You don't watch. Instead, you return home and scrub your hands raw in a bucket of cold water mixed with vinegar and herbs. It doesn't help. Not really. But it gives you something to do, something to control. Your wife is paler these days. Not sick, at least not obviously. But the strain wears her down. You see it in the way her shoulders slump, in the way she stares into the fire long after the flames have died. You touch her arm gently, and she leans against you without words. Your children sit nearby, quiet but watchful, as if they understand far more than they should. You speak softly that night around the fire. You tell a story your father told you about a fox who tricked a wolf into falling into a well. It's a foolish tale, but the children laugh, and the sound brings warmth that the fire cannot. Your daughter's cheeks are flushed, but not with fever. She's recovering. You can feel it. She walks around the cottage again, eats solid food, even hums under her breath, while helping her mother grind grain. You watch her with a protective gaze, as if the strength of your love alone can shield her from the shadow still circling outside. A week passes, then 2, and the village begins to change. Not with recovery, no, that's too bold a word, but with adaptation. People start to emerge again, tentatively like rabbits after the hawk has flown past. They speak to one another through doorways. They trade from arm's length. The blacksmith forges tools again, using a small fire outside instead of the forge inside his cramped hut. The baker kneads dough behind closed shutters, leaving loaves on a bench for pickup. Payment is placed in a bowl of vinegar to cleanse it. Your neighbor offers you a bundle of dried beans in exchange for your last bit of cured pork fat. You agree silently. Neither of you smiles. You return to the fields and notice something odd green shoots where you didn't expect them. The land, ever indifferent to human suffering, continues its slow work. The barley grows unbothered by plague. The carrots are nearly ready for pulling. You kneel in the dirt and tend them with care. Your fingers are steadier now, not from peace but from routine. Even fear can be worn into the background if repeated often enough. One morning a priest visits the village. Not the old one you heard he died weeks ago, coughing blood in the chapel. This one is younger, red-eyed, and gaunt but determined. He walks from door to door, offering blessings from a distance, sprinkling holy water that steams in the sun. When he reaches your home, he stops outside the gate, raises his hand, and whispers a prayer. You nod. You don't speak. But for the first time in weeks, you feel seen. Later that same day, you hear the manor bell ring, not the toll of death, but the sharp call of command. It echoes across the fields like a summons. You know what it means. The Lord has returned. He was gone for months, fled to a distant estate when the first rumors of plague reached the countryside. You don't blame him. He has the means to run. You don't. You gather with others near the edge of the manor. A group of guards stands at attention. The Lord rides in on a black horse surrounded by servants in clean tunics and masks. He doesn't dismount. He simply surveys the village from the saddle, his face impassive. You feel no anger, just distance. He is of a different world. But then something unexpected happens. He speaks. His voice is strong, rehearsed. He thanks the village for their loyalty. He acknowledges the deaths. He orders that all surviving families be given double rations from the storehouses for 1 week only. A gesture, not generosity, not justice, just enough to remind you who holds the power to give and take. But it's something. You return home that evening with a small sack of flour and a wedge of hard cheese. You break the cheese carefully, slicing it into pieces so thin they almost vanish. Still, they're real. And when your children taste them, their eyes light up. You share a meal that night, not a feast, not even a full belly, but enough. You eat slowly, grateful for each bite. Your wife closes her eyes as she chews. You can see the strength returning to her limbs. You look around the cottage. The firelight flickers across the stone walls. The children sit close. The air smells of bread and smoke. Your hands, though cracked and rough, are steady. Outside, the wind carries no tolling bells, only the sound of birds and the faint rustle of grain in the field. For tonight, that is enough. The first clear sky you've seen in weeks stretches overhead as you step into the morning light. For the first time in what feels like an age, the wind doesn't carry a threat. It's gentle, almost playful, brushing against your face and lifting the edges of your cloak. The sun is bright, but not hot, and the air smells like wet grass and wood smoke, familiar, comforting scents that tell you the world, for now, is still turning. Your daughter walks with you today. She's thin, her steps still cautious, but her eyes are wide open, her skin no longer flushed with fever. She holds your hand tightly as you make your way to the family plot. It's not far, but it feels like a triumph. Weeks ago, she couldn't lift her head. Now she hums quietly under her breath. Your wife watches from the doorway with a quiet smile, arms folded, eyes glistening. This morning isn't about work. Not yet. Today is about taking stock of what's left, what's growing, and what can still be salvaged. You kneel down beside the field and check the rows of barley and leeks. The weeds haven't overtaken everything. The earth, indifferent to human grief, has kept doing what it does best, pushing life upward, reaching for the sun, utterly unbothered by your suffering. You turn a clump of soil with your fingers. It's moist, rich, soft. A good sign. Your daughter watches you work, then copies you, digging into the earth, and giggling as a worm wriggles past her knuckles. That sound so small and pure echoes in your heart like a bell. Behind you, others are returning to the land too. The village, though scarred and quiet, is stirring again. Not like before. There are fewer voices. Some homes stay shuttered. Some doors bear no marks at all because the people inside are simply gone. But life is returning all the same. The reeve comes by mid-morning, a new list of duties rolled in his hand. He speaks softly, almost respectfully. There is no bark in his commands. Too much has changed. He knows, as you do, that pushing too hard now might break what little remains. He asks if you can help repair the fence along the southern edge of the manor lands. You agree. Not because you must, but because doing something feels better than doing nothing. And because if the fence fails, the livestock roam and you all lose. You return home to gather your tools, the hammer, the rope, the bag of rusting nails you've hidden under a loose floorboard. As you pack them, your wife slips a cloth bundle into your hand bread and onion. She doesn't speak, but she nods. You kiss her forehead and go. The walk to the manor edge takes time. You pass the ruins of a cottage that burned during the early panic weeks ago. No one speaks of it, but everyone knows what happened. The family inside had taken in a traveler, and when the fever came, fear did the rest. You don't linger. At the fence line, 2 others are already there. One is older, hunched with a bad leg. The other is young, barely more than a boy, with calloused hands and frightened eyes. You nod to them. No words. The work binds you together in a way speech never could. The fence is in rough shape. Sections are caved in the posts, rotted or chewed through by animals. You begin by digging out the worst of them, pounding new stakes into the ground, binding rails with twine and prayer. The work is hard. The sun climbs. Your hands blister anew. But it's clean work, purposeful. Every swing of the hammer is a rejection of despair. Every board you set is a line drawn against chaos. At noon, you rest under an ash tree. The bread your wife packed is dry but filling. The onion stings your tongue and eyes, but it wakes you up in the best way. You share a few bites with the others. You don't have to, but you do. One of the men speaks softly, as though afraid to break the silence. He says his sister died 2 days ago. No warning. Just a cough, a fever, and then nothing. You say you're sorry. You mean it. The younger one tells a different story. His mother recovered. Weak, tired, but alive. He says he didn't think she'd survive. He says he prayed. And for the first time in a long while, he believes someone listened. You nod again. Because you understand. By dusk, the fence is nearly whole. You stand back, admire the line you've restored. It's not perfect, nothing in your world is, but it will hold. For now. As you head home, the village comes into view. You see smoke rising from chimneys, hear the faint clang of metal on metal from the blacksmith's yard. A child runs through the path, chasing a goose, laughing breathlessly. It's a small scene, but it feels enormous, like hope returning. When you step inside your cottage, your daughter is waiting with her mother. They've made stew thin, mostly turnip, but warm and lovingly stirred. Your wife kisses your cheek as you sit. The children chatter softly, their voices like music against the silence of the past weeks. After the meal, you go outside one last time. You sit on the wooden stool near the door and look up. The stars are out, sharp and bright, scattered across the black sky like seeds. You haven't looked at them in so long. Too long. You let your eyes drift from one to the next, tracing ancient shapes your father once named for you. Somewhere a nightbird calls. The wind rustles the barley. and for the first time in a long while you let yourself exhale, not from relief but from something close to peace. The plague is not gone. The hardships haven't ended. You know there is more toil ahead, more hunger, more aching bones, more loss. But tonight the fire is warm, your daughter is alive, and the stars still shine above your little world. And that you think as you rise to go back inside. That is enough to carry you into tomorrow. You wake to a strange sound. At first it doesn't register. Your dreams still cling to you, like spider silk images of fields without end. Your wife's laughter, your daughter dancing barefoot through golden grain. But the sound cuts through the haze a sharp, steady rhythm. Thump, thump, thump. It's a hammer. Not yours, not your neighbor's, but from the direction of the church. You rise slowly, stretch your aching limbs, and cross the cottage to the door. The morning air hits you square in the chest, cool, sweet, tinged with ash and dew. You squint toward the chapel just beyond the trees at the village's edge. There. At the side of the stone structure, a man stands on a ladder driving nails into wood. A new sign, perhaps. A warning. A name. You can't tell from this distance. But what strikes you is that it's happening at all. After all these weeks of silence and fear, something is being built. Repaired. Replaced. The hammer is an unfamiliar but welcome sound, reminding you that life does not only fall apart. Sometimes it begins again. You wash your hands and face, eat a small bowl of leftover barley stew, then check on your daughter. Still sleeping. Her breath is calm. You smile, press your lips to her forehead, and step back outside. The village is beginning to stretch. Doors open. Smoke rises from chimneys. Someone calls to their goat, laughing when it darts away. Two children race down the muddy path, wooden swords in hand, shouting something about dragons. Even the birds seem louder this morning. You walk to your small plot to inspect the barley. The grain is growing tall, the stalks thickening green now, but promising to turn golden with time. The sight fills your chest with a warmth stronger than fire. You brush your hand gently across the tops, feeling the whisper of the leaves against your palm. Behind you, someone calls your name. It's Oswin, the old man with the twisted fingers and bent back. He limps toward you with a cloth bundle in hand. He's smiling. You haven't seen him smile in months. He opens the bundle and shows you what he's made: a small wooden scoop, carved with care, sanded smooth at the edges. He presses it into your hand. For your daughter, he says. Something for her to hold. For the harvest. You're speechless. She won't harvest anything, not for a while. But the gesture is so kind, so unnecessary, it makes your throat tighten. You nod, grip his hand, and hold the scoop like it's carved from gold. Later that morning, you're called to the village square. It's not a demand, it's an invitation. The new priest stands at the well, surrounded by the villagers. His robes are simpler than those of his predecessor, his beard shorter, his eyes younger but not soft. You can tell he's seen pain, buried the dead, held the hands of the dying. He lifts his arms. We are still here, he says, and because we are still here, we must not only survive, we must remember how to live. He speaks of rebuilding, of caring for one another, of honoring the dead not with silence but with life. He offers prayers. He speaks the names of those who've been lost. You bow your head when Edric's name is spoken. He ends with a strange request that each family offer one thing, not food, not labor, but something symbolic, a sign of life resuming. At first, no one moves. Then a girl steps forward and places a small garland of daisies at the base of the well. A boy follows with a hand-carved flute. Someone lays a loaf of bread steaming from the oven. You look down at the scoop in your hand. You walk forward and place it next to the garland. The priest nods at you. You return home lighter. That afternoon, you help your wife repair the roof. The winter did more damage than you realized. The thatch is thinning, and a corner of the beam has rotted. You climb carefully, placing your weight only where the supports hold. Your wife passes you handfuls of straw, bundled tight with twine. As you work, you talk about the barley, about the children, about how the goats keep getting into the garden. It feels like old times. Not happier times, perhaps, but simpler ones. Before plague. Before death tolls and shuttered doors. When the repairs are done, you rest together by the fire. Your daughter plays with the wooden scoop, filling it with bits of dust and straw, tipping them into a cracked bowl and giggling each time. Your sons wrestle in the corner, arguing about whose turn it is to fetch water tomorrow. Your wife hums a melody you haven't heard in years. You let yourself imagine the coming season, the harvest, a feast. Laughter. You know better than to expect ease. You know that hardship is never far. But still, the seeds are in the ground. The tools are ready. The bodies, though worn, are moving again. And in the hearts of the villagers, those who remain, something like courage is beginning to grow. That night, the air is warmer. You leave the cottage door open for a while just to let the breeze pass through. The stars above are brighter than usual. You trace their patterns with your eyes, remembering the names your father taught you. The fox, the hunter, the harp. You wonder what stories your own children will tell someday, of this time, these fields, this fight for life beneath an indifferent sky. You close your eyes and breathe deeply, and as you drift off to sleep, you do not dream of death. You dream of planting, of growing, of waking again. You wake to the smell of rain before the first drop hits the roof. It's faint at first, just the damp scent of earth and wet leaves, the kind that stirs a memory rather than an action. You lie there quietly listening. The first droplets tap against the thatch above your head like cautious fingers. Then all at once the sky opens. Rain pours in thick sheets, hammering the roof, soaking the world beyond your door. You rise slowly, careful not to step on the children still curled together under the blanket. Your wife is already awake, her shawl pulled tight, as she stirs the ashes in the hearth. She glances at you, offers a small nod. No words are needed. Today will be a day indoors. You open the door just a crack and peer out. The yard has turned to mud. Water rushes in thin rivulets between your garden rows. The chickens huddle under the eaves, their feathers puffed and miserable. Even the goats look offended, pressing themselves against the stone wall, as if they could escape the sky. You sigh and shut the door again. Inside the cottage is warm close. The fire catches after some coaxing, and soon a small flame flickers in the hearth. You hang the kettle over it and settle down with your wife and children. The rain drums steadily, a rhythm that becomes background music to your day. Without fields to tend, you turn to the long list of tasks always waiting indoors. The tools need repair. Your youngest son brings you the hoe with its cracked handle, and you sit cross-legged on the floor, sanding a new shaft with slow, steady strokes. Beside you, your daughter hums while threading bits of string through old buttons, making a sort of necklace for her doll. The doll itself is little more than a bundle of rags, but she cradles it like royalty. Your wife grinds grain into coarse meal for flatbread, her hands moving with practiced rhythm. She sings softly an old song from her childhood, something about a swan and a mill pond. You don't know all the words, but you hum along. Later she boils a bit of lentil stew with wild onions. The smell fills the cottage, overpowering even the wet earth. You don't have meat, but you do have salt and dried herbs from last year's gathering. It's a rich meal by your standards. Your son breaks off a piece of bread and grins as he dips it into the pot, steam curling around his fingers. When the meal is finished, you sit by the fire and tell stories. This too is tradition older than plowing, older than harvest. On days when the skies weep, you turn inward into memory, into legend. You tell of the time the fox stole the farmer's cap, of the knight who tricked the ogre into jumping into a well, of the boy who planted a bean and climbed into the clouds. Your children listen wide-eyed, their faces glowing in the firelight. Then your wife tells a story, not one from a book, but from her own past, of the great flood years ago when the river swallowed the fields and fish swam through the wheat. She was a girl then, small and thin, and remembers climbing onto the roof with her sisters, clutching their mother's hands while the water licked at the walls. They ate dried apples for 3 days before the priest came by boat to bring them down. She smiles as she finishes, and the children ask if it really happened. She nods. Not every story is made up, she says. Outside, the rain continues. By afternoon, you bring out the bone needles and begin to patch your oldest tunic. The elbows are nearly worn through again. Your fingers fumble, but your wife shows you how to twist the thread better, how to make the stitch small and strong. She's patient. She always is. When the rain slows, you step outside for a moment, just to stretch. The air is thick with moisture. Your boots sink into the mud. The clouds hang low over the fields, but there's a break in them now, a thin ribbon of light on the horizon. You look out over your land and smile. The rain will do good. You return inside, shake the water from your shoulders, and settle back near the fire. That night, you eat well. The flatbread is crisp and warm. The stew is thick, and for dessert, if you can call it that, you pass around a tiny jar of honey saved from the last barter you made with a beekeeper passing through. Everyone gets a spoonful. It's the sweetest thing any of you have tasted in months. Your daughter licks hers slowly, like it's treasure. After the meal, your wife braids the little girl's hair while humming, and you sit with your sons, sharpening the knife you use to carve fence posts. They take turns practicing on scraps of wood, making tiny animals awkward but proud. The priest's voice echoes from the distance. You can't see him, but you hear his evening chant carried by the wet air rolling over the cottages and into your home like a soft tide. You bow your head as the chant passes, whisper a short prayer of thanks for the roof over your head, the food in your belly, and the family still at your side. You bank the fire low before sleep. The children curl in close again. Your wife leans against you, her breathing already deep rhythmic. You lie back on the straw bed and listen as the rain returns, gentle now, like a lullaby. And before sleep takes you, you smile. Today, no fields were sown, no debts paid, no grain tallied or quotas met. But in the flickering dark, you remember. You lived. You laughed. You told stories. And in the world of a medieval peasant, that was its own kind of victory. You waked to silence, not the heavy kind of silence that accompanied the plague, not the hollow hush of mourning or fear. This silence is lighter, gentler, like the earth itself is pausing to exhale. The rain has passed. You hear it in the way the air feels softer, the way light creeps through the cracks in the shutters, golden and clean. The storm has washed everything, fields, roofs, skin soles. You rise slowly, stretch, and push open the door. Mist rises from the ground, curling in ribbons across the muddy path. Dew clings to the barley stalks, turning each one into a silver thread glinting in the morning sun. Somewhere in the distance, a lark sings, and for a moment, you just stand there barefoot, blinking into the light, letting the stillness hold you. Then, almost reluctantly, you return to your routine. Your body moves before your mind fully engages. Gather wood stoke, the fire, fetch water from the well, check the coop. The chickens are calmer today, scratching happily in the wet straw feathers, fluffed out in the warming sun. Even the goat, usually stubborn, stands quiet and content. Inside, your wife is already baking. The flatbread bubbles gently over the stone. The smell of cooked grain and ash fills the air. Your daughter helps her eyes, bright hands dusted with flour. She giggles when she sneezes and leaves a cloud of white in her wake. You watch them and feel once again that deep ache of joy. Not the explosive kind, just a steady warmth in your chest, like embers that never go out. After breakfast, the village gathers. It's not a market day. It's not a feast. It's just time. Time to count who remains. You walk slowly to the village green, your sons beside you, the younger one bouncing with questions you can't quite answer. Who will be there? Will Oswin come? Will there be food? You answer only with a smile and a squeeze of his shoulder. When you arrive, the others are already gathering in a loose circle. No one stands at the center. No one leads. It's simply understood. After all that's passed, after all that's been lost, no one needs ceremony, just presence. You count. In your head, in your heart. You count the faces that are missing. The old woman with the limp and the ribboned hair. The baker's son. The young couple who used to walk hand in hand every evening before sunset. Gone. But others remain. Oswin leaning on his stick. The steward quieter now, his voice no longer carrying the same sharp edge. The priest pale and tired but standing tall. Mothers with babies. Children with messy hair and dirt-covered feet. Men and women whose eyes have seen too much and survived anyway. Someone begins a prayer. You join voice, low words, familiar and soothing. The Pater Noster, the Ave Maria. Psalms half remembered but deeply felt. Afterward, no one speaks. They don't need to. Instead, people begin to move into work, into routine. The blacksmith returns to his forge. The brewer's son rolls barrels toward the inn. The midwife helps a woman heavy with child into the shade of a tree. You help repair a wall today. It's not yours. It belongs to the widow 2 cottages down. Her husband died in the first week of the plague, and the ivy has begun to pull the stones loose. You and 2 others gather with mortar and rope, and without a word begin to rebuild. As you work, the widow brings bread and a jar of pickled beets. She doesn't say much, just thanks you with her eyes. You nod, eat slowly, and return to the wall. There's something deeply comforting about setting stone upon stone. It's an act of faith, even if you don't call it that. A belief that something can hold, that something will stay, that not everything has to fall apart. When the wall is finished, the 3 of you stand back and admire it. It's crooked in places, but strong. The kind of strength that comes not from perfect planning, but from effort and care. You walk home in the late afternoon sun. Your hands are dusted with lime and sweat. Your back aches, but your heart is light. Your children are outside gathering wildflowers, not because it's a holiday, just because they can. They run to you, their arms full of blooms, daisies, violets, a few scraggly stems of lavender. Your daughter tucks one behind your ear and laughs. You chase her around the yard, pretending to be a bear, until you're both out of breath and grinning like fools. That night, your wife cooks a porridge with bits of dried apples stirred in. You saved the fruit all winter. Now it feels like the right moment. A quiet celebration. You eat with the windows open, letting in the scent of spring and the sound of frogs from the pond. After the meal, your family sits outside. You bring out the stool, and your wife brings her spindle. She spins thread by firelight, humming again. You notice how the light glows along her cheekbones, how her fingers move with grace you never stop admiring. The children lie in the grass, pointing out stars, giving them names that make no sense and laughing at the sky. You look up too. The stars are the same ones you knew as a child, the same ones your father taught you, the same ones that watched over you during famine, war, sickness, and joy. They do not change, and somehow that thought comforts you. You breathe in the cool air, listen to the quiet chatter of your family, and feel, if only for a moment, that this life, however hard, however fragile, is good. Hard won, but good. And as sleep pulls you toward it once more, you promise yourself, tomorrow, you'll plant more barley. And maybe, just maybe, a patch of flowers, too. The barley glows gold under the rising sun, and for the first time in a long while your eyes don't scan the field in fear of blight or drought or weeds. You look upon the swaying stalks and see only grain food, warmth, the future. The wind rustles through them like a whispered promise. Your fingers graze the heads as you pass, feeling their weight. Soon they will be ready. Today is a market day, a proper one. You haven't been to market since before the plague began. Back then it was a loud, muddy affair, bartering and shouting, chickens under arms, children weaving between carts and stalls. When the sickness swept through the market, emptied, closed. Now it's back, tentative, smaller, but alive. You wear your best tunic, still patched at the sleeves, and carry a basket filled with eggs, 2 bundles of onions, and a small pouch of dried herbs. Not much, but it might trade for a bit of wax or a needle, or if you're lucky, a pinch of salt. Your wife sends you off with a list, her words clipped but hopeful. If you find any wool scraps, even dyed ones, she says bring them. She's been piecing together a blanket for the children, and color, she says, might be good for the heart. Your daughter insists on walking with you. You hesitate, but her eyes are clear, her step firm. She's no longer the fragile ghost you carried in your arms. She's blooming again, thin but spirited. She holds your hand, and together you walk the muddy lane toward the village square. The closer you get, the louder the sound. Voices, laughter, bells and creaking carts. It's overwhelming at first. You pause at the edge of the square and take it all in stalls, draped in cloth baskets piled high with leeks, turnips, dried beans. A man sells shoes, another mends pots on a low stool. The air is thick with the smells of yeast smoke, sweat, and roasted fish. Your daughter pulls at your arm and you move forward. The first few trades are quiet. A woman gives you beeswax for 1 bundle of onions. A boy with a scar on his chin swaps you salt for 3 eggs. You speak little. No one speaks much. But the air isn't tense, it's cautious. Like the market itself is waking from a long sleep and isn't sure it's safe to stretch just yet. Then you hear music, faint then louder. A reed pipe, then a drum. A voice sharp and nasal singing a traveling tune. You turn and see him, a jongleur, bright-eyed and barefoot, juggling apples and shouting verses about a chicken that married a goose. Children gather around him, squealing with laughter. Your daughter pulls away, and runs to join them. You watch, smiling. The jongleur pretends to stumble, lets the apples fall, and snatches one mid-roll. He takes a bite, winks, and tosses the half-eaten fruit to a boy who nearly faints with joy. Later, your daughter returns, breathless and flushed, a piece of blue cloth clutched in her hand. A gift, she says, for the loudest laugh. Your chest tightens. You walk home together through the woods, taking the long way to avoid the worst of the mud. She skips ahead now and then, pointing out mushrooms on tree trunks and ducking under low branches. You carry the half-empty basket and let her lead. When you reach the cottage, your wife is kneeling in the yard, weeding the herb bed. She looks up, shielding her eyes, and smiles when she sees the cloth. Your daughter hands it over with ceremony, and your wife runs the blue square through her fingers like it's velvet. That night after supper, your wife begins to sew it into the blanket. The children sit around her heads, tilted, watching the needle rise and fall. You sit by the fire and mend a strap on the goat's harness. But your eyes stray often to the needle, the thread, the steady movement of your wife's hands. You realize it's not just cloth. It's something bright, something alive. Later, your daughter asks you to tell a story. She curls against your side, and you begin with the tale of the lost baker who found a magic seed. You don't remember how it ends, so you make it up, letting the seed grow into a giant loaf of bread so large the whole village lived inside it for a year. She giggles and yawns at once. You carry her to bed. As you settle under the blanket, now patched with blue, you stare at the beams overhead and listen to the sounds of your life. The wind against the shutters, the fire crackling, your wife breathing slowly beside you. You think of the market, the laughing children, the jongleur's apple tumbling through the air. You think of how easily the world fell apart, and how gently it has begun to stitch itself back together. Not quickly, not neatly, but surely. Like a patchwork blanket pulled from scraps and stitched with steady hands, imperfect, but warm. And as your eyes close, you imagine it wrapping around your village, holding you all through the coming night. Harvest time. You feel it in your bones before you even open your eyes. Not from dread, but from knowing. It's in the air. The barley has begun to bow its head, heavy with promise. The leeks are thick in the soil, and the apples, what few you have, are ripening on the trees like little gold coins. Today, everything changes. Harvest is the peak, the moment everything bends toward, the reward for all your labor. But it's also the greatest risk. A single storm, a single infestation, and months of work vanish overnight. There's no safety net, no grain in storage. What you gather now will feed you through the next year if you're lucky. You dress quickly, washing your face in cold water, tying your belt with sure hands. Your wife has already risen. She moves through the cottage like a flame, quick, quiet, full of purpose. She hands you a strip of bread smeared with fat and a boiled onion wrapped in cloth. She kisses your cheek without a word. She knows the stakes. Outside, the village is stirring. Not slowly as on other days, not drowsy or sluggish. Everyone moves with precision like cogs in a single machine. The reaping must begin at first light. It will take days, perhaps a week, and the weather will not wait. You nod to your neighbors as you pass. No smiles, no banter. There is only the work now. Your daughter walks with you. She's old enough now, not to reap, but to glean. She'll follow behind, gathering what falls through your fingers, the missed stalks, the scattered heads. It's small work, but sacred. Every grain matters. When you reach your strip of land, you pause. The barley shimmers in the early light. Its tips just beginning to yellow, the dew still clinging to the stalks. You pull your sickle from your belt. The blade is duller than you'd like, but you've done what you could with your whetstone. You touch the earth briefly, mutter a prayer under your breath, and begin. You cut in smooth, practiced arcs, not fast. Fast leads to waste. Each stroke must be clean. Your hands fill with stalks which you bind into sheaves with strips of twine. The sun climbs. Sweat rolls down your back. Your muscles protest, but you keep going. You have to. Your daughter follows, small hands darting between the rows. She moves like a rabbit, quick and clever. You glance back once and see her holding up a handful of stray grains, beaming. You nod, and she beams even brighter. By midday, you've filled half a cart. Your wife arrives with your sons, bringing food pottage and flatbread wrapped in cloth still warm. You sit beneath a tree at the edge of the field, eating slowly every bite earned. Around you, the sounds of the village echo, men and women cutting, children laughing. The creak of wheels, the clink of blades, the rustle of grain falling into sacks. No one speaks loudly. There's too much to do. You finish your meal, stretch your arms, and return to the rows. By afternoon, your hands are blistered. Your shoulders ache. But the rhythm carries you. Cut, gather, tie. Move forward. Repeat. Occasionally, a breeze lifts through the stalks, cooling your skin, carrying the scent of ripe grain and earth. You pause just for a heartbeat and let it pass over you. The sun begins to dip. The sky softens into hues of copper and lavender. You load the last sheaves into the cart and wipe your brow with your sleeve. Your daughter is sitting on the edge of the cart, now swinging her legs, face flushed and freckled with dirt. You take a deep breath. You did well today. As you return to the village, you pass others doing the same, pushing carts, guiding oxen, carrying baskets. Everyone is dusted with chaff. Everyone is exhausted. But there's something else, too. A current beneath the fatigue. Hope, real hope. Not the desperate kind born of prayer and hunger, but the kind that grows from the smell of grain and the weight of food in your hands. You unload the sheaves into your barn. The structure is barely more than 4 walls and a roof of woven straw, but it's dry and it will hold. Your wife inspects the grain. She nods, satisfied, and begins to lay the stalks out to dry. The children help. Even the little one, now toddling, carries a single stalk proudly like it's a sword. That night, the meal is simple, more flatbread, a stew of cabbage and barley, and a single apple cut into thin slices and shared among you all. You eat slowly, not out of scarcity, but out of reverence, because now you know the harvest has begun. And if the weather holds and the Lord is kind, you'll make it through winter. After supper, the village gathers, not for ceremony, not for prayer, just to be near one another. A small fire burns at the center of the green. Someone plays a pipe. A child sings an old song about rabbits and moonlight. A few people dance. You sit on a stump, your daughter asleep against your shoulder, and watch the flickering shadows dance across the cottages. You see faces tired, older than they were last year, but still here, still fighting. You look at the stars again, the same ones, always watching. And as the night deepens and the fire burns low and your family huddles close, you whisper a single word into the dark, enough. Because tonight it is. Tomorrow the sickle will rise again. The fields will call. The sun will burn. But tonight you rest. With full hands and a heart that for the first time in many seasons dares to dream beyond survival. The days blur into each other again, But this time not from fear or famine, from motion, from work, from the long, steady rhythm of harvest. You wake before the sun and sleep long after it sets. Your body aches in places you didn't know could ache. Your palms are hard as leather, your knees dark with bruises. But you do not complain. No one does. Because this is the season when your survival is written into the grain. Every morning, the same routine, sickle in hand, scarf tied around your brow, a hunk of bread tucked into your pocket. Your daughter skips beside you now, stronger every day, her hair tied back with a ribbon made from a strip of old tunic. She's proud to work, proud to carry the basket. She no longer coughs. That silence, the absence of her wheezing, feels like a song in your chest. Your wife and sons handle the drying, the threshing, the sorting. You can hear the rhythmic beat of their work, even from the fields, flails pounding on stone, separating wheat from chaff, life from husk. One afternoon, the steward visits. You tense at first. You always do when someone from the manor comes near, but he doesn't demand anything. He nods at your bundles, counts with his eyes, and scribbles in his little book. Then he leaves without a word. You know the tax is coming soon. The share for the Lord, the portion for the church, the ration for the reeve. You sigh, but it's a sigh you understand. A peasant's sigh. Because this is the way of things. You give your share. You keep what you can. And you hope that what's left is enough. As the harvest stretches on, the village begins to shift. People sing again in the fields. Not loudly, not like in the days before the sickness, but softly under their breath, like a lullaby they've remembered. Children laugh without covering their mouths. The baker whistles. The blacksmith hums. One morning, old Oswin, who you thought might not survive the winter, joins you in the field. He can't swing a sickle anymore, but he kneels among the sheaves and ties twine with fingers stiff from age. You reap like your father, he says, fast but kind. He never tore the earth. You smile. You hadn't known he remembered. Each evening the barn fills more. The grain sacks are stacked high against the wall, sealed with beeswax to keep out the rats. Your wife stores herbs in jars and knots garlic above the door. She lines shelves with apples wrapped in straw and tucks onions into corners. Every space is used, every cupboard filled. You begin to plan. You count how many mouths to feed, how many nights the dried beans must stretch. You set aside seed for next season, even though it tightens your chest to do so. You can't eat that grain, not now. But it's your future. Your daughter brings in the last of the leeks. Your youngest son catches a hare in the snare trap. For the first time in months, there is meat in the pot. And that night, the entire family eats slowly, reverently. Not just for the taste, for what it means. That you made it. That the worst passed over you. That the sickness, the hunger, the fear, they came, they bruised you, but they did not end you. One morning near the end of the harvest, your wife surprises you. She pulls out the patchwork blanket, the one she'd been sewing by firelight, and spreads it over the straw bed. You stare at it. It's beautiful not for its colors or stitching, but because of what's sewn into it. Pieces of every season. The red scrap from your daughter's tunic. The blue cloth from the market. The brown strip that once lined the swaddle for your youngest son. It's a quilt made of survival. A record of days you didn't think you'd live through. You touch it with reverence and your wife smiles. It's ours, she says. All of it. The harvest ends on a gray morning. The sky weeping with soft rain. as if the season itself mourns the passing of its golden time. The fields are bare now, just stubble and damp soil. But your barn is full. Your shelves are full. Your heart is full. You walk one last time through your plot, your boots sinking slightly in the moist earth. You kneel, press your hand to the ground, and whisper thanks not just to God, but to the soil, to the sun, to the rain, to every blister and prayer that brought you to this moment. And then you rise, because winter will come as it always does. It will be long, cold, testing. But this time you are ready. This time you have what you need. This time you will not face it empty-handed. As the rain falls gently around you and the village quiets into the hush of the season's end, you return to your home, where fire glows in the hearth, where your family waits, where life against all odds has taken root and held, and now the light is fading. You've walked the fields, gathered the grain, mended the roof with your own calloused hands. You've buried friends, tended the sick, and laughed through tears. You've knelt in the dirt and stood tall under the stars, and through it all you endured. You, the medieval peasant, nameless in the chronicles, faceless in the tapestries, were never just background noise to kings and knights. You were the heartbeat of the world, the hands that fed it, the arms that built it, the quiet, unseen soul that carried history forward, step by aching step. So as you lie down now beneath the patchwork blanket, the fire warm at your feet, and the straw rustling beneath you, let yourself rest. You've earned it. Close your eyes. Listen to the gentle crackle of the hearth, the soft breathing of your children, the night wind brushing the cottage walls. Let the weight of the day fall from your shoulders. Let the story settle into your bones. You are safe here. You are full. You are home. Sleep now, weary traveler. Let the village fall silent. Let the harvest moon keep watch. Tomorrow will come, but tonight is yours.